Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics Frontline Update video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is a video for the 24th of January 2023. Let's get to the overnight and other news as normal. First of all, the Ukrainian figures for the Russian losses for yesterday, all the usual caveats, accuracy, propaganda. Russia don't produce the same figures on a daily basis. I use these indicatively. So Ukraine have said that 690 liquidated personnel were lost yesterday. So that is probably just slightly higher than average, about average for last week, I guess. 2 tanks, 8 APCs, 2 artillery systems, 1 MLRS, 2 aircraft, and 4 helicopters. Okay, so those previous figures were kind of like meh. 2 aircraft, 4 helicopters is huge. I'm only aware of, I'll just give you the air figures that I have, but I wasn't aware so many helicopters were lost. 3 drones, 8 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 1 piece of special equipment. So the latest I'd heard was that 2 Su-25 attack aircraft, a Ka-52 attack helicopter, 2 guided X-59 rockets, and a UAV Orlan-10 drone were taken down. So now there's 4 helicopters. It'd be interesting to see where those other 3 have come from. This figure was from last night, whereas this one here, the list of losses has just been released. So there's an extra 3 helicopters on there. Very interesting. And there's also, and it's not on that daily report, but there's a report that a boat has been sunk. Ukrainian forces hit and sunk a Russian reconnaissance and sabotage unit on a boat over the Dnipro River near Potemkin Island. Yes, so this is island in the Dnipro River by Kherson that the 2 forces are fighting over. And Russia's claimed yesterday, well, didn't claim, there's geolocated footage of a Russian flag flying on one part of it. And there's previously been Ukrainian flag. So it's this, I don't know if it's becoming a sort of totemic island, but yeah, there you go. Other news: Estonia plans to close the Gulf of Finland for Russia. Estonian Foreign Minister Urmas Reinsalu says Estonia is considering introducing a zone in the Gulf of Finland up to 24 nautical miles from the coast where inspections of any passing ships will be carried out. The official reason is to control the regime of compliance with sanctions against the Russian Federation. This doesn't mean Russian ships are completely blocked yet. For a full blockade of the Gulf, Finland has to introduce a zone similar to what Estonia is considering. And here it is. So this Gulf for inspections of any ships passing, and they'll need to be carried out. So if we look at the Gulf of Finland, we've got St. Petersburg in this little area here. You've got Estonia down there, and there will be possibly checks of Russian vessels. That is going to be a real hassle for Russia, who will, if they want to get around that, obviously have to go north of Scandinavia, really, to get meaningful traffic out of Russia. So Estonia could be holding the keys to Russia being in a right old pickle there, and hopefully, be able to uphold a lot of those sanctions, possibly a lot better. Uh, Unconfirmed report: the German government is going to tie every permission for the re-export of Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine with an obligation to buy new Leopard 2s in Germany. Okay, well, adding to that, or perhaps superseding that, we have this news. Good news to start the day with. Reportedly, 12 countries have agreed to supply Ukraine with 100 Leopard 2 tanks if the German government gives its approval, a senior Ukrainian official tells ABC News. And apparently, that has now been officially requested to Germany. Germany were previously saying, well, no one's asked us. All this news that was flying around about what Germany have said no to export licenses, or said no, yes, no, whatever. And actually, they were claiming that no one's officially approached them and asked them, whether this can happen. So if they give the go ahead, which the indications appear that they will do, then that's 100 Leopard 2 tanks. Okay, we are now starting to see a significant number of mechanized piece of equipment, or pieces of mechanized equipment that could really form the backbone of a counter-offensive in whatever area that Ukraine decides. So That's a really meaningful number of tanks there. Excellent stuff. Dang. So that's Potemkin Island. I meant to put that previously. That's the island between uh, the east and west banks of the Dnipro River, and that's what they're fighting over. So now we're going to look a little bit at internal fighting on both sides, actually, to some degree. Gerasimov has come along and he's introduced all these different uh, requirements now for soldiers. He's shaking things up. Surovikin has been demoted. um, Gerasimov has said, you can't have mobile phones, you've got to have haircuts, you've got to have a clean, you've got to be clean shaven. This can be quite a problem on the front line, getting hold of clean water to shave every day. As Ukraine latest, Dom Nichols was saying, this can actually lead to more infections as people cut themselves, having to dry shave. And shaving their heads can lead to cuts and infections, and it sounds quite minor, but that's quite important when you're living in really poor conditions on the front line. Is quite difficult to uphold. He was saying it's the wrong way round. You produce good tactics and successes on a battlefield with good training and all this, and then you introduce stuff, this little stuff to keep that up here. You don't you lead with this stuff. Whereas Gerasimov is saying, right, we need to lead with this and get the discipline improved. But anyway, it is causing a bit of a backlash, specifically with regard to the mobile phone usage on the front line, stopping that. Of course, that will be really useful for their OPSEC. I won't doubt it, but they're not happy with that. Most of these guys are mobilized and convicts, right? So they don't, you know, they're not career army people, and they haven't really received that quality training either. So yeah, it's all a bit of a mess, so on and so forth. But alongside that, there's been some shuffling around. So General Colonel Mikhail Teplinsky, who's in charge of the VDV, they're the airborne troops, has been dismissed. It looks likely he's been dismissed as one of the operational commanders. He was in charge of the successful withdrawal from the west of the Dnipro. There's talk about the VDV being used incorrectly. They've been used as basically normal infantry, um, like mechanized infantry, given jobs that they would do in holding positions rather than being the kind of crack airborne people coming in to do X, Y, and Z quickly and then get out. So I don't know if it's got anything to do with that. As the UK intelligence says, Teplinsky's dismissal is likely another symptom of continued divisions within the senior hierarchy of Russia's operation as General Valery Gerasimov attempts to impose his personal authority on the campaign. In fact, the ISW talk a little bit about the Ukrainian intelligence having issues. The Russian intelligence Wagner having issues. Um, and talking about Wagner, the Wagner Group's outsized reliance on recruitment from penal colonies appears to be having increasing ramifications on their combat capabilities. So, head of the independent Russian human rights organization Rossiyeskaya, Russia Behind Bars, Olga Romanova, claimed on January 23rd that out of the assessed 50,000 prisoners that Wagner has recruited, only 10,000 are fighting on front lines in Ukraine due to high casualty, surrender, and desertion rates. That can't be verified, but the model Wagner has reportedly been using of retaining its highly trained, long-serving mercenaries as leadership and special forces type elements on top of mass untrained convicts has led to this kind of situation. So ISW has previously reported on instances of relatives of Wagner Group fighters receiving empty coffins after being told their loved ones died in Ukraine, suggesting that Wagner lacks a basic administrative and bureaucratic infrastructure to track and present its own losses, adding further credibility to the Rossiyeskaya estimate. So things aren't looking good for Wagner behind the scenes, and indeed for the Russian forces in general, in terms of shuffling and people being removed, demoted, so on and so forth. And this continued fight for PR, I guess, between the Wagner group and the Russian MOD. And there's a tussling for power as well, which doesn't bode well for the organization or for the Russian forces going forward. However, the Ukrainian forces have their own issues here. So, Defense Minister has resigned after the scandal with Deputy Defense Minister, sorry, with inflated prices for the purchase of products for Ukrainian military units. There's been this corruption scandal going on that has led to, you know, one person being arrested, who was in charge of sort of procurement of stuff, as far as I can understand, infrastructure and so on and so forth. This says Vyacheslav Shapovalov, who was responsible for the logistics of the Ukrainian armed forces, resigned at his own request, and this is stated on the website for the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So there is a little bit of an issue going on at the moment in Ukraine. In fact, a number of people appear to be on the chopping block in the Ukrainian government. A few people have lost their positions and so on as they're trying to root out corruption, which is never a good thing to be trying to do in the middle of being in the defensive stance in a war. Um, so yeah, challenges for both sides certainly here. Anyway, let's get onto the front lines. Actually, just as we get to front lines, no reports are reportedly in just half an hour of combat overnight between 12 o'clock and 12:30, three Russian Ka-52 helicopters were destroyed, as according to the general staff. So that is a much more recent update, and so that's where those other three helicopters are, were lost. Wow, three in half an hour. That's true. That's a huge loss in terms of equipment and the expertise on board. But it depends whether the crew were able to get out. Thanks for checking out the news part of what's happened on in Ukraine, pertinent to what's going to be going on the front lines. The frontline video will follow shortly. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for all your support.